Can you explain what copywriting is?
So it's writing with purpose. You're trying to kind of persuade people, whether whether you're a company selling something or whether you're sort of a company trying to get people on board. It's just trying to write in a way that persuades somebody to do something. It can kind of intermingle with content writing as well, which is a very similar thing, but content writing is more brand led. So content writing will be things like blogs and like social media posts and things like that. So you're not necessarily trying to get people to sign up to a brand or like click through and buy things. You're trying to like sort of expand the sort of brand ecosystem essentially. So a lot of the stuff that I do is like brand guidelines. So that's my kind of, I love that area. That's like one of my favorite things to do is like brand guidelines. So that'll be tone of voice for brands essentially. So a lot of the stuff that I've done recently as a freelancer is working with brands on their entire brand guidelines. So that'll include brand mission, values, how they speak across the whole brand, which isn't necessarily copywriting, but I call myself a copywriter, but I'm essentially like copywriter, content writer. I do writing essentially, and
Sure.
it's quite a mixed bag. Like you don't necessarily get content writers who are also copywriters, but you can have copywriters. You tend to have copywriters that are also content writers. Like businesses will hire a writer who can kind of do everything, in my experience anyway, because you kind of want to get your most for your money, I guess, as a business.
Exactly. Yeah.
So like, yeah, the main things are like CRM, like emails and things like that. So, those emails that you'll get in your inbox where it's like 30% off and all that kind of stuff. That'll be a lot of copywriter work. But then I like to do a lot of, I get more excited about the brand stuff. I really like shaping how a brand sounds. And a lot of my sort of like tone of voice is very authentic, very fun. I like brands to sound like they're not brands essentially. I like brands to sound like they're humans and like that we're just speaking to them like as humans essentially.
Yeah. Well, tell us who actually needs copywriting. So if you're a young guy starting a business, do you need to think about it?
Yeah, I mean, everybody with something to sell or to shout about or to just try and get people on board, even if you think about day to day, if you're selling something on Facebook Marketplace or you're on Vinted or something like that, that little description box that you've got in there, like you're selling like your old jumper or something, you want to put as much information in there as possible to get someone to buy it.
Persuade people. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's essentially what copywriting is on a very, very boiled down level, on a very non-brand level. That's essentially what it is. So I would say everyone. I mean, I've got to say that because I want to keep getting paid to do it. So like, I don't want to say like nobody needs it. Everybody should just use AI.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
fine.
building on that, like how important would you say copywriting is in the success of a product? Give it like a rating out of 1 to 10. Like how important is copywriting?
I mean, again, I'm very biased, so I would say like 8 or 9 out of 10 at the very least. I had this conversation the other day with somebody. I work for a stationery company, and I kind of basically said to them like, all the product descriptions, we need to have something on the product descriptions, not just because there's a lot of talk about SEO and things like that. I don't know if you're familiar with like SEO and things, like, yeah, so that kind of factors in as well. But my standpoint is we shouldn't just put product descriptions on for SEO. They should be part of telling the rest of the story. So if you imagine you're clicking through from an email, you get an email from a brand and you see the product that you like and you click through and you go, oh, I really want to look at that product in a bit more detail. If you land on that page and there's no words or like copy to describe what that product is, there's more of a, like, in my opinion, there's more of a likelihood that you're going to go, actually, I'm probably not going to bother with that, or I'll go and find it somewhere else. But where if it doesn't necessarily have to have copy that persuades you, if it's copy that carries on that story of the product that you're trying to sell, you're more likely to be inclined to want to buy that product or be more interested in that product. So in that sense, in my opinion, it's really important, not only just to sort of convince shoppers to buy things, more to just carry on the brand story and expand that brand story, not just from certain channels to just everywhere, the whole sort of brand ecosystem, I suppose. So yeah, I would say really important.
Yeah. Could you give us an example of good copywriting and an example of bad in the sense of a product for like a product page?
Yeah. Bad copy tends to be overly descriptive. It tends to be full of sort of adjectives describing the product rather than explaining what the product does. So good copy tends to sort of solve problems quite quickly and simply. So like, say for example, I used to work for a beach towel brand, and one of the key things was it was a quick dry beach towel. Rather than just kind of saying, oh, this towel is quick dry, you'd say something like, you can come out of the sea and this towel will dry you in a flash, so you can get on with your day quicker. Sort of descriptive, but actually actioning that description. Also, bad copy tends to waffle a bit too much, a bit like I do sometimes when I'm speaking, but that's fine. I've got a bit of a technique with copy where I'll write way too much. Like I'll overly describe the product and then I'll strip, say, 50% back. Just
Yeah,
and
it's
try and
simplicity the key.
yeah,
Is that,
yeah. I
Okay.
would say so. I would say descriptive, but not overly descriptive. There are areas where you can be descriptive. It's an interesting thing, copy. It's very subjective, I would say, which is one of the main challenges. Like, as somebody who wants to get into the business of copywriting or get into the industry of copywriting, one of the main sort of bits of feedback that I would have is to take feedback, because it's so subjective. Like somebody could read a piece of copy and go, I don't really like that. Whereas you can get somebody else who would read it and go, I love that bit of copy. So words are so subjective. It's the same thing with like, I really love that book and somebody else hates that book. It's so like, people have such strong opinions about it. And you'll find that if you work for a business as a copywriter, for example, you will get feedback from almost every single team member, whether it's the buyer of the product or like the CEO or like the social media manager, marketing manager. You will get feedback from everybody about copy, and you just kind of have to bend with it or stand your ground and say like, no, I'm the writer. This is what I think will perform best. And a lot of it is testing as well. A lot of it is sort of figuring out what works best and what works best where and all that. Yeah, there's a lot of, I don't like working to a structure. I like trying to keep it quite flowy, but like some areas tend to say, if you want to be a bit more descriptive, you can do that in bullet points, for example. But yeah, good copy is very succinct and to the point, and in an era of everybody's got TikTok brain right now, I think, where we've not got much of much of an attention span anymore. So it's that copy that grabs you from the start and keeps you interested and makes you think, oh yeah, actually, I think that product's for me, to be honest.
Yeah. When it comes to the subjectivity of it, how important is it to know who you're writing for, and does that change your approach?
Yeah, it is important, and it's important to do the research, especially on bigger pieces. Again, like for example, the tone of voice sort of stuff that I do. It's important to know who the key audience are and who you're trying to persuade. That is a really important part of copywriting. I try to, sometimes I can be a little bit arrogant and hope that people just like what I'm writing and hope another audience will come along and enjoy it. But you can't just rely on that. You do have to sort of play into the audience that you're aiming to get, because otherwise it doesn't work as well as other types of copy, for example.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Let's
Okay.
say there's a younger person out there, just started a company, has a product page, has a bunch of products. What are any easy ways that he can take on in order to significantly improve his copywriting?
Ooh, it's a good question. I would say find similar brands that you want to sound like or think that are doing things well. I do this pretty much almost on a daily basis. I'll go and try and find a brand, whether it's me cold outreaching to them saying, give me a job, or whether it's just me sort of like picking up on little bits of copy that they've written. I would say go and find a brand that you want to sound like, or you want to sound similar to, or who you aspire to, and read what they've written and not copy it. Don't copy the copy, because that's just, yeah, there's no point. I would just say just take inspiration from them and pick up what they're doing and kind of go, all right, how can I relate that to my product or my products, and use their tone of voice and how they are doing things for me. And that, as a starting point, I think that's a really nice way of doing it. And then I think naturally over time, if your product's successful, or if you want to continue to try and test different things, I feel like it will naturally come to you, like how you want to portray these products. And I think that's why people hire copywriters, because we've got that I'm speaking very broadly here, but like we've got that natural ability of we read all the time, we read everything, we want to go and absorb like how people are saying things, so we can naturally pick up like, oh, this sounds like that appeals to this person and things like that. So yes, a starting point would be to like find people who you think are doing it really, really well. Even if it's not product led, even if you're working for a charity or things like that, find people in your industry who are smashing it and take inspiration from them and use their words and how they're doing things.
We sort of touched upon it there, and you said don't copy the copy. If you had to sort of say these are the biggest mistakes that beginners make, what are them mistakes?
Again, like writing too much, overwriting is a thing. Being too generic, I would say, is quite a big one. I think, like I said, in a world of sort of a lack of attention to a degree, and like the market is so saturated out there, I think being generic is a bit of a pitfall for quite a lot of people. And just, I guess, writing without consistent voice across everything. So if you've got like different products, they still need to have, or if you've got different things you want to write about, they've still got to have the element of like a core tone of voice. If I say, for example, if I was starting up a business now, I mean, freelancing is kind of a business to a degree. Like I do a lot of sort of daft stuff on LinkedIn that I think is like personal brand, because like I'm not a very serious person. So I kind of lean into that whole, I'm going to take the mic a little bit on LinkedIn because it's just for my personal brand. And they're the clients that I want to attract as well. Those kinds of clients who don't really take themselves too seriously. But then again, I work for a couple of clients who are a bit more of a serious company. So it's a tricky one. You want to have that personal branding. You want to have like a core tone of voice across everything, while still talking about different things. I would just say like have your brand and like keep that precious, and don't try and stray away from it just to keep that consistency across everything.
Sure.
It's quite a good one.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining us today on this sort of copywriting 101 episode. It's been very useful.
Thank you for having me. Cheers. Thanks, guys.